Welcome back to Hardball. Democrats lost 2 governor's races last night in Virginia and in New Jersey. That was the big one in Jersey. So how do they spin those defeats? Republicans lost a candidate up in the upstate New York race they thought they had in the bag. So both sides are spinning. Let's bring in the strategists to see how they spin. Steve McMahon and Republican Todd House, you're both good at it. So I don't know whether you're going to BS us or not. But let's start with you, Steve. Was it a good night or a bad night for the Democrats? Steve McMahon.
It was a mixed night, Chris. I mean, I think New York 23 was certainly a good night. They picked up a seat that Democrats haven't held since 1871. But there's no question that looking at what independents did in New Jersey and in Virginia is like a canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, I think I read that. You said that. Let me ask you, a canary in the coal mine is when you send the bird in to see if there's any gas in the mine so you don't go in and get gassed. Now, the question is, what should be the warning to Barack Obama and the Democrats out of last night?
Well, I think the warning should be Barack Obama knows already that the center decides elections. It's not the left and it's not the far right. It's the people in the middle. And what happened last night with the people in the middle, the independent voters went out and they cast their votes for Republicans after casting their votes for Democrats in 2006 and in 2008. That's a warning sign for Democrats. It doesn't mean independents are gone. It's not really a referendum on Obama as much as it's a referendum on incumbency. Because if you look at every single place where the elections were held last night, the incumbent party got rejected by the voters, and the independents went in and cast their votes for Republicans. The latter is a troubling sign for Democrats. The former is a troubling sign for any incumbent.
You know, I want to change the pattern here a little bit and go to you, Todd, on that. I think the Democrats got into a poo storm last night, meaning they got hit from both the left and the right, populist, independent. The populist on the independent side said, you know, wait a minute, I think they're in bed with Wall Street. I can't believe I'm saying this about Democrats. But Corzine, Bloomberg, and the bailouts, and hanging around with Geithner, hanging around with Paulson, hanging around with Summers, they're part of the big business problem, as well as the big government problem. So your party benefited. It looked like the Democrats were hit left and right from populist feelings in this country.
Well, remember, Chris, just a couple weeks ago, we were talking about some of the new NBC polling that showed that across the board, people were tired of the establishment. They were sick of big government. They were sick of anyone who was in power. And this was a massive repudiation of anyone who was in power. And as we talked about a few weeks ago, ultimately, I think that helps Republicans heading into 2010 because Democrats hold all the levers of power
I have you enjoying my comment. Let me give you one you won't like. Your wingnuts have screwed things up already in upstate New York. Are you going to keep doing it around the country? Knock off Charlie, Chris. Put in Rubio so he can't win the general. This is what the Republicans used to do back in the early 60s. Bring in people that couldn't possibly win and enjoy it because you were right, even though you lost.
In the interest of full disclosure, I have to tell you, as much as you may be appalled by this, but I'm actually supporting Marco Rubio in Florida. He absolutely can win in a general election, and you know, but if you look at guys like Marco Rubio, look at guys like McDonald, look at guys like Chris Christie, these are not right-wing wingnuts. These are mainstream conservatives who have a political profile that can fit their district.
Okay, we'll see about that. Let me go to Steve on that one. What do you think of this? Do you think the Republican Party is tilting too much starboard here?
Well, the Republican Party is basically regressing to become a white male Southern party. And, you know, when you take a situation like New York 23 and you throw your Republican nominee out because they're too moderate, and then you nominate and support you support a conservative party candidate who's too conservative to win, then you're basically killing yourself. And I think you're absolutely right, Chris. Your observation that, you know, we can call them wingnuts, I guess. But
well, give me a better word. Help me out here.
The far right of the Republican Party has taken it over, and they're making the Republican Party unconcompetitive in a lot of parts of the country.
Okay, Steve, I
got to tell you that, you know, it doesn't fit the storyline that Steve's trying to push right now. But Congress,
by the way, neither of those guys in Virginia or in New Jersey ran as Republicans. They both ran as sort of centrist candidates.
Yeah,
the centrist won last night.
Doug Hoffman was no more conservative than now Army Secretary, former Congressman McHugh. If you look at their ideological profile, they're almost identical. So it's ridiculous to say that a guy that was way too conservative to win in New York 23 got the nomination.
The Republicans threw that nominee overboard.
Steve, let's get back to basics here. Do you think any Democrat or Republican again will make fun of his opponent or her opponent for being fat? Do you think that may be the last time that's done in Jersey? I hope we can show that while we're talking here. And now they clearly focused on all that white shirt of Chris Christie, who's now going to be governor of New Jersey, all of him, by the way, making fun of his girth. Is that going to stop that crap? Excuse me, that bad stuff?
I don't think it was Governor Corzine's proudest or strongest moment in the campaign. But frankly, I don't think it had much to do with why he lost. There were a lot of other issues going on there. Property taxes, insurance rates, and other things that he promised to do something about and was unable to tackle as governor. So I think his problem stemmed from his performance more than from any comments he made, however ill manner.
You know what I liked? I like McDonald's commercials. Maybe because of my background, I'm Catholic, but I just thought it was a nice way he did it. He said, here's my daughter. She graduated from Notre Dame, and everybody in my religion is sort of a subway alumni of Notre Dame, and we're very impressed. And then she went off and became a ROTC officer. She fought in Iraq as a service person. I thought that was a positive way to run for office, and maybe it was too obvious, but Todd, it worked for me, and I think that's why he beat the other guy by 18 points, the Democrat.
Well, he was able to make, McDonald was able to make a personal connection with voters in Virginia, which is so critical when you're running, especially statewide, where voters really want to get a sense of who you are. If you're going to be their governor, they want to know who you are, and they want to be able to like you, and he was really able to make that personal connection with them.
So Steve, it didn't matter that he wrote a right-wing term paper 20, 30 years ago. That didn't turn out to help the Dem much.
I think it mattered. I think it mattered, but I think what happened in the campaign was for the Deeds campaign, that was the only thing that mattered. And for voters, it was maybe one of 5 or 10 things that mattered. What McDonald did that was so compelling was he talked about the issues that are on voters' mind. He talked about jobs and the economy, transportation, which is a big issue here in Northern Virginia, and he talked about taxes. He didn't talk much about cultural issues. And I got to tell you, I voted for Craig Deeds. I supported him. I wanted him to win. I cannot tell you a single thing about Craig Deeds or what he wanted to do for the state of Virginia, and that's a real problem because I pay attention to politics.
I think negative campaigning did not have a good year, thank God. I think both negative campaigns failed, and I'd love to see that because I am so tired of watching television the weekend before an election and see people accuse the other candidate of being criminals, and I can't stand it. Anyway, thank you, Steve McMahon. Thank you, Todd Harris.